to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Welcome in. Friday, November 22nd. Jason Moore is here. I'm Andy Holloway, the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Jay Grizz in the building. Mike will be back on Monday. Great show for you today.
I think it is. I think it really is going to be a great show.
We have the Fantasy Forecast Part 2, reviewing the matchups. Got a little start of the week pivot I got to do.
Oh, yeah.
Once we get to the news. And
Times two.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I know what you're saying. We'll get to that. We also have a Thursday night game to talk about. Before we jump into that, I want to remind you, the website, thefantasyfootballers.com, is where you find all of our weekly rankings, the start-sit tool, all the articles. It's where you can find the ultimate dashboard to help you optimize your lineup every week. And lots of other FootClan tools. And you can learn more about becoming a supporter of the show and unlocking all of those sweet treats. FootClan Friday today. Oh, I didn't finish the sentence. Jointhefoot.com. That's where you go.
Yeah, that's an important part. Like if people are like,
yeah, I
want that ultimate dashboard.
I'll be honest. What happened was I said sweet treats. Then I started thinking about Thanksgiving.
And
then I started thinking about
treats to Thanksgiving.
Well, because once I said sweet treats, I was like, what's the closest holiday where that would be relevant?
Okay. So
and it's not Halloween anymore, so now it's
Pumpkin Pie and Cool Whip.
Is that your go-to? Cool Whip?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. If you're doing if you're doing pumpkin pie, you have to have so much Cool Whip.
You've had questionable pumpkin pie takes before.
That's not true. I promise that's not true. I mean, there's no way. My pumpkin pie takes have been as true gets.
There's a pumpkin pie guy in the YouTube comments, too.
Well, then I like that man, assuming that his pumpkin pie take is that it's a wonderful treat. It's delicious. And you know what makes it especially delicious? It's not overdone. You ever had a pumpkin pie in April? No. I don't think they make them.
I thought you meant you cooked it too long. You meant like you just eat it during a certain period of time so you don't get burnt out.
Exactly. It's like the McRib. You know what I mean?
Why is it that – I mean, we've had this debate before, but why is it that there's foods like orange juice, it's a breakfast food? Dude, you know what I mean? Like you can't –
yeah, breakfast –
the whole idea of like certain foods, you can eat pancakes.
Breakfast in America is so funny to me because I'm an American and I am locked in with – you can't have regular food at breakfast, but it makes no sense.
Well, but it works both ways, right? You also can't have like oatmeal for dinner, right? You can't have.
That's nonsense. You can't do that.
It just doesn't feel right.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about last night's football game.
Yeah. Speaking of treats, Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston, the quote machine himself, in the midst of a blizzard, in the midst of dropped passes and snow flurries and just the beauty of NFL football with weather.
Okay, two things here. We got Jameis and then we got weather, okay? Well, let's start with Jameis. I realized what's so special about him off the field is that his interviews, if you only listen to the audio and you just take away, you're just listening on the radio and you listen to an interview, what a wild man. What a quotes galore, things that are said that are just, they make you scratch your head, they make you smile, they make you laugh. Now you take away all the audio, and you can't hear anything being said, but you get to watch it, and you just see his smile,
childlike innocence,
innocence, and his hand movements, and he's just like, and then you put them together, and you get to watch and hear this. There's no one on the planet like him.
It's difficult to explain the contrast between the likability of Jameis and the dislikability of the quarterback they have.
I feel like it's pretty easy to explain.
I guess it's easy to explain, but the contrast between Deshaun Watson and Jameis Winston in likability, it's as big as anything you could find in the NFL.
All right, and now we've buried the lead. Let's get to it.
Yeah, the weather was awesome.
Snow.
The weather was awesome.
The snow in that game was awesome.
Yeah!
It was so much fun.
Oh, man.
It was real football.
There's a crack in the dome.
No, so here's the problem. There shouldn't be a crack in the dome. There should be a roof on the dome. It should be a retractable. The Arizona Cardinals built one for half $1 billion.
If they have a retractable roof in that game, there's no snow on the field.
No, I am team open the roof for snow.
Okay.
But close the roof.
Getting real detailed.
No, have you ever, genuinely, like I could
have a 500-page document to describe your weather takes.
There's like 3 rules here, man. This is clear and like people want to argue for the weather. People want to argue against the weather. I just want what everyone actually wants, which is awesome football. A snow game can be awesome. I can remember like 5 unbelievable Snow Bowl type games. The Shady McCoy game. Like they're just so different and unique, and the football's still good. Name me a really sloshy, windy game that was like, that was awesome. That was good football. Man, I enjoyed that windy, wet game. You can't. I know you can't think of one because they don't exist.
There was the one where Justin Fields slid on the water, and he looked like he was, he belly surfing for about 30 feet.
How'd the game go? I mean, that was a good
it was
clip.
probably crappy.
No, probably. You don't remember because it was crappy.
Weather games in football are like the pumpkin pie. You need it for a
Snow
small
games,
amount
yes.
of like a small amount of the season to appreciate it. But if you had it every week, you wouldn't like it. It's just variability. It's just I'm not watching the exact same thing every single time. That's all I like about it.
It was fun. And now getting into the football side of the game, there was good football played in difficult conditions. Also, I'm so thrilled that the Browns won simply because, I mean, you want to talk about a great fan base? You're 2-8, and it's a blizzard.
It's packed out.
And it's packed and no one's leaving. I'm so happy because it looked like they were going to lose.
There's nothing to do in Cleveland. There's nothing to do. Jalen Warren over 10 points, Jason.
Oh, yeah.
Not only did you have to endorse a snow game, you've got to endorse Jalen Warren.
It's a wild morning. Jalen Warren got over 10 points for the first time. Who did not? Najee?
Najee.
Yeah.
Right after I sent a message into our Slack channel, our company Slack, saying, so consistent. I sent the screenshot of Najee's performances over the course of the year, and they were outrageously good until last night when, I mean, a lot of variables in place. Yeah, Najee had been 12, 10, 10, 20, 18, 16, 13, 13, and yesterday was the worst game of his season.
This was a very difficult game. You've got a good Cleveland rushing defense. You've got weather against you, and honestly, neither Jalen Warren nor Najee were good in this game. Najee didn't get a touchdown. Jalen Warren did, and that's where, like, I'm just waiting for this 10-point game. I don't think he scores 8 points without the touchdown. It wasn't like he had a big performance, but he did cross the threshold of an actual usable game. It took that touchdown. But talking about players who played well, I mean, Russell Wilson really impressed me. In poor weather, 21 of 28, 270 yards, a touchdown. They ran the ball a lot. As you would expect
them to try to do in that weather. But then, Russ was good. Judy was great. And Nick Chubb with 2 touchdowns a week too late on the start of the week, but he scored twice.
Yeah, I mean, it was tough sledding for all running backs, but the touchdowns came, so that was really, really nice. Jerry Jeudy looked awesome. And if I could just have my man Njoku listen up for a second.
Yeah, you were really
I really need you, and your team really needs you, and they designed up a super easy play. I mean, Jameis could have thrown that thing granny-style underhand because he was not far away, and I know that there was snow, but how do you not – I watched the play again this morning. Njoku had the easiest touchdown in the history of the NFL.
A free TD.
Yeah, and he just dropped it. That was thankfully, Jameis got the rushing touchdown a little bit later, but it was a fun game. Takeaways, I would say – we talked about the difficult stretch of games coming up for Jameis and the Cleveland passing offense. I don't care. Like even in bad weather, like Jerry Jeudy, 6 for 85.
This was a game they were leading for a good portion too, and they couldn't throw the ball well, and yet they still produced. Sorry to cut you off.
No.
You're right.
I think Jameis is going to throw the ball a lot. I mean, obviously, when the weather is not as bad as it is now, as it was last night, it'll be even better. So I'm in. I was impressed by both teams.
And Cleveland now with Jameis has knocked off the Ravens and the Steelers.
2 of their 3 total wins.
It's just the same thing we say all the time. It's what makes the NFL great. Any given Sunday, any team with any record can beat the other team if there's a blizzard. It's also Friday.
FootClan Friday.
Well, I don't know why the name is this, but congratulations to Andy's Illegal Dumpster Shifts.
Huh. That's the name of the user?
That is.
Every Friday, we give away $100 to a supporter at jointhefoot.com, $100 to fantasychamps.com. Illegal Dumpster Shifts.
Do you have a peeing behind a dumpster story? I feel like something in my mind remembers some story where you might have. Yeah, I see some nods around the studio.
There was one time that I peed behind a dumpster in public because
you had to go pee-pee.
I had to go pee, and the story got good because I was pretending to be on my phone because there were people around, and so I was pretending to talk with one hand
behind the dumpster where people go for private conversations.
Well, I had to get away.
Right. So let me go talk behind the dumpster with.
I mean, that's a throwback. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe that's where the
I
name
don't think
comes
so,
from.
but congratulations to Andy's Illegal Dumpster Shifts from jointhefoot.com, and I will get into the news as fast as possible.
News and notes from around the league, presented by USAA Insurance.
Okay. Well, let's jump in here. Eagles wide receiver Devontae Smith remains sidelined on Thursday. The news yesterday, I hadn't been aware of the hamstring injury. Now it's been 2 days. So I said to myself, let's pivot that start of the week to somebody that has a great matchup that we talked about in the difference makers segments.
Did you?
Let's go to Ladd McConkey.
My little lad.
The great matchup against Baltimore. And Ladd didn't practice on Thursday due to a shoulder injury.
Yeah, he's missed a lot of practices for a rookie this year. I worry a little bit about his undersized nature getting beat up in these games. So who are you pivoting to next?
Let's go to Huge. Let's go to Quentin Johnston in the same game against Baltimore where we already liked Justin Herbert. So we'll try the pivot number 3.
I think it's going to work. Matchup-wise, the cornerback that he should line up against the most gives up the most explosive play rate right now in the NFL, and that's kind of what Huge has been doing. So the matchup is there. Honestly, if I had Huge and I had Ladd, I would be starting Huge this week.
And Ladd might still play. It's a Monday game. It could be a day off of rest after a big performance last week. But
I expect Ladd to play, but you just don't want to take that extra risk. Why pivot from an injured guy to an injured guy?
Yeah, that would be – then I'd have to pivot again, and that's no fun. DeAndre Swift returned to a limited –
I believe that's called a travel.
Oh, you can't lift your pivot.
Can't do 2 pivot
Can't
foots.
lift your pivot.
Yeah, you get 1 pivot.
Unless in the NBA.
Or if you're LeBron James,
yeah, if you're in the NBA, you
get
can.
like 7.
DeAndre Swift returned to a limited practice on Thursday. Sam Laporta practiced in full on Thursday. That's exciting. He's got a good matchup.
Trending towards playing for sure.
Mike Evans upgraded to a full on Thursday, although the comments from the head coach was we just don't know how much he'll be able to go. It's a little bit of I would expect to see what you saw from Nico.
Exactly the same thing. That's what I was just looking up to remind people.
Maybe 50% of snaps.
Yeah, Nico this last week played 47% of snaps. Now, he still had 7 targets, should have had that 70-yard touchdown, looked great, but I do think that, when Mike Evans is on the field, it's to have passing plays where he can either stretch field or be targeted. So I'm still going to start Mike Evans, but I'm not going to be upset if at the end of the game it's a 4 for 45 and he plays 50% of the snaps. I know that's in the range of outcomes.
Little worried here. CeeDee Lamb downgraded to a DMP on Thursday, was limited on Wednesday. You never like a midweek downgrade for a player.
No, you do not. Is he do you remember what time his game is? Is he Sunday Night Football? I don't remember. I'm just trying to hope.
Yeah, you're looking at your roster right now.
Yes, I am.
It's Washington.
Nope, he's in the morning. So, cool. This is a legit downgrade. Pay attention. I've moved him to my flex so that if I need to pivot away, I can.
The Schoon Man might have a big opportunity this week with a bad quarterback.
Yeah, you got Brandon Cooks. We don't know if he's going to play or not, but he's, potentially going to play. Jake Ferguson remaining sidelined with the concussion protocol. They got to throw the ball somewhere.
And I'm still a little bit – I mean, Jason, you made this comment so perfectly yesterday. It was announced that Brock Purdy was throwing at practice, and so you were like, this is the news. The news is that you have to announce that he's throwing at practice. You got more news this morning from John Lynch saying that they did an MRI on Purdy's shoulder. They said they feel, quote, good about where it is from that standpoint, but that he's going to practice. They'll go forth accordingly, that it is tenuous, that Brandon Allen and Josh Dobbs would both be ready, and that it would be Allen first.
It is a legitimate concern.
It sounds ominous.
I believe Brock Purdy will 100% play in this game. He is a tough player. That's part of what Kyle Shanahan loves about him. He talked about the story from his rookie year when he was playing through some of these injuries. He just knew, like, this guy's got the it. He's got that football makeup that you need to be able to go out there and play tough. Brock Purdy has that. That being said, he's a human being, and if he can't throw the ball well and he takes a massive blow to the shoulder, it's a risk.
Green Bay favored by 3 in that game.
And they need it. They need Brock Purdy. They need this win. They are not a lock for the playoffs by any means.
All right, that was today's news and notes presented by USAA Insurance. Learn more at usaa.com/insurance. Let's jump into the forecast.
It's time for Fantasy Forecast, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook.
We're in the midst of a bye-apocalypse. 6 teams on bye. They seem to have a lot of players in a lot of lineups. Yesterday we covered the Vikings, Bears, Lions, Colts, Patriots, Dolphins, Buccaneers, Giants, Cowboys, Commanders, and the Chiefs-Panthers game. If you want to hear those matchup breakdowns for fantasy football, you can scroll back to yesterday's show and listen to us discuss those guys. 6 more matchups to cover today. We've also got the Fantasy Faceoff later on in the show. Mike, while he is strolling through Disneyland, by the way, his churro count only 1.
Yeah, it was pretty,
as of yesterday, just 1 churro.
Pretty embarrassing.
Not the kind of stats you'd expect him to put up, nor would.
It's out of his control. He follows the rules.
What are the rules that you follow with the churros?
We both follow the same rule, which is if you are in Disneyland and you walk past a churro stand that has no line, you must get a churro. It doesn't happen often, but which is why when you see it, you go up and you get yourself a churro.
Is that rule like prohibitive of waiting in line for a churro?
It turns into being prohibitive for what? Yeah, it does.
So you don't wait in line.
Correct. I've shifted over to where that's how I know I get a churro if there's an empty churro stand.
Are the churro stands generally on those big wheels, like how they get them there?
Yeah.
So do you think you could
just move it?
Well, just contract one of those people to follow you around the park? That would cost a lot. You'd have to shell out big bucks for that. You tell me you wouldn't pay for all those churros?
I don't know, man.
Yeah, that's a lot of churros.
That's a lot.
So, yeah, hopefully the churro count gets up today. That's kind of embarrassing.
You know what else is embarrassing in this Tennessee Titans going to the Houston Texans matchup? I'm looking at the DraftKings Sportsbook lines, and Tank Dell's receiving yard line at 47.5 yards. I just saw that and went, ugh. It's just so sad.
It's the new normal, Jason.
It is. He's averaging 44.8 yards per game. It's not acceptable.
Houston -8. The over-under is 40.5. That gives Tennessee just 16 points. Houston 24. Heavily favored. Houston has the opportunity to go to 8-4 in this one. I mean, Tank Dell is very much a who do you have to start option.
Yeah, 100%. Like if I had Cuge or Tank Dell, I would go the Cuge route.
Just 2 top 24 games this year and on pace for 62, 7, 17, and 3, which would make him a late round pick next year.
Yeah, for sure. He hasn't disappeared or been an out and out bust on the NFL field, but for fantasy football.
I'd rather have Jerry Jeudy rest the season.
Oh, for sure. That's an Jerry Jeudy.
That sentence doesn't sound great preseason.
Well, no, because he didn't have a quarterback preseason.
Well, Nico Collins should see a full allotment of routes in this one.
Nico Ballins, no L'Jarius Sneed gives me much more confidence because the Titans on the course of the season, they're top 5 against wide receivers. They don't give up a lot of fantasy points, but a lot of that is the personnel, and that's their best defensive personnel.
They've also softened quite a bit. Fantasy points allowed over the last 6 weeks, just middle of the pack in that metric. C.J. Stroud's my start of the week with Nico back. I think he gets it done. He plays great at home, over 300 yards a game at home, a 5% touchdown rate at home. It's not very complicated with Houston. Stroud, Mixon, Nico, with Tank Dell in the flex consideration.
Tank is in consideration.
Xavier Worthy or Tank Dell?
Tank Dell.
That's where I would go there as well.
Okay, and that rhymes. Obviously, Joe Mixon is going to be a must-start every week. He's the #1 running back on a per-game basis.
I love him.
So I'll bet you do. On the other side of the ball, Calvin Ridley I feel like is a must-start. I know he feels because of how low the lows were and how often they came to start the season. The first 7 weeks he had one good game, and so it was like this guy's worthless. But since that time, which is exactly when Hopkins was traded away, he's been really good. I mean, 17.6 half PPR points, 10 points, 22.9. Last week was a little bit disappointing, but it wasn't a bust game. And coming on this week against the Texans, that's where you beat them. It's hard to run on them. So I like Calvin Ridley quite a bit.
Yeah, the target percentage went down a little bit last week. You had the 98-yard Westbrook-Akine touchdown. You had the called back bomb touchdown to Ridley. I'm with you on that. I think Westbrook-Akine is certainly a flex-worthy player. You can't talk about Hopkins leaving without talking about the snap count difference for Westbrook-Akine. He was irrelevant, and now he's basically playing every snap.
Yeah, he went from 20%, 15%, 24% to 92, 97, 185%. He is a full-time player now.
He's also scored a touchdown in 5 of 6 straight weeks.
I will not be betting for that streak to continue.
Okay, so Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears, where are you with the backfield in Tennessee?
Well, Tajay Spears right now still in the concussion protocol, which means Tony Pollard is probably a volume play, not a great matchup. You don't have high expectations, but Pollard will be in your lineup. Spears, not. I mean, he won't be. I think if Spears is cleared, then Pollard becomes a questionable start.
What is the is there anybody else in this game?
Nope.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Not going to start the slowest man alive in Dalton Schultz.
No. Not
going to start Will Levis even in 2 quarterback leagues. I think he's a sit this week. I mean, bye weeks notwithstanding. So let's talk Broncos Raiders.
Okay. The Broncos are 6-5. The Raiders are 2-8. The DraftKings Sportsbook line, Denver -6 on the road. The over-under is 41. Denver beat them 34-18 in Week 5. That was the beginning of the Bo Nix run of top 12 fantasy finishes. So 5 of the last 7 games. He's completing almost 70% of his passes, 32 passing touchdown pace. He's your start of the week. There's a lot of momentum behind Bo Nix. This game looks like a blowout. Is there any chance we are not happy with the outcome? Las Vegas at home.
Any team can win any given Sunday, really. But it's been many Sundays since the Raiders have done that to anyone. The team seems miserably falling apart. Antonio Pierce is not a good enough head coach, and they don't have the talent. So can Max Crosby cause a sack fumble return for a touchdown and allow the Raiders to sneak out a win? Yeah, but for the most part, I think what you're seeing is a team with an upward arrow in the Broncos, who are every week playing more motivated, more in sync on offense. I mean, which makes sense. This is such a young team led by a rookie quarterback. You expect them to get better and better as the season goes along, while the Raiders are really trending in the other direction. They, a couple of weeks ago, they wanted to move to Ritter. They're like, we're going to go to our 3rd quarterback this year, and then they're like, that's too far. I don't know what to do. I mean, it just feels like the tale of 2 completely different vibes in the same matchup.
The #1 start-sit question on our website for the start-sit tool: Bo Nix or Kyler Murray this week? The people have heard you endorse Bo Nix as the start of the week.
Mm-hmm.
Kyler Murray coming back off the bye. He's had up and down performances. He'll be in Seattle.
I've still got Kyler ahead of Bo Nix this week. I will be monitoring the weather. It should be a little bit rainy in Seattle. Rain by itself does not usually affect total points scored and really not even – it doesn't have a massive effect on the passing game. If it's really, really wet and sloshy, you'll have more drops, and then it's the wind that you've got to be concerned about. But so we'll just have to – I'll be doing Sunday Live this week, an hour before kickoff, on all of the
You have your weatherman suit on?
Oh yeah, I'm gonna have the green screen behind. Okay. I'm gonna take us, from place to place. I'm a meteorologist on Sunday.
It is getting to that time of year. A lot of people want to know what to do with the running back room in Denver. Here's what I'll tell you: DK has the rushing yard line for Javonte at 37 and for Estime at 33.
That makes it pretty darn easy.
Which is neither.
Now I will say the Raiders are a very soft rush defense. They're 25th. They give up enough points, and with a 6-point spread, if you have to take a shot on one of these guys, I mean, you're gonna. It's so hard, man, because it's gone back and forth every week for the last 3 weeks between Javonte and Estime, and for no rhyme or reason. Call it hot hand, sure, but it seems like it started from the get-go, and the other guy didn't get a chance in either game to show what is the temperature of your hands. It did not even test it.
No. What if it's like everybody's got cold hands? Who plays then?
Which could very well happen, and I think then who plays is Bo Nix, hopefully finding Troy Franklin, but more than likely finding Cortland Sutton, who's been shockingly consistent. I mean, over the last month, 13.1, 19.8, 16, 11.3 fantasy points.
It shouldn't be shocking that talented players are consistent when they get a quarterback. And Sutton has been under the same suffering of McLaurin and DJ Moore and a lot of these guys that when you just get them an opportunity, it makes a difference. And it's nice to see that he can deliver on that.
Javonte had 14 targets last week. I see a question here of Javonte Williams versus Tank Dell. And that is a fair, difficult question. I'm going to lean on the Tank Dell side.
That's where I am.
Because I will not be surprised at all if all of a sudden, 2 weeks ago, Javonte Williams got 3 total opportunities in the game. He got 1 carry and 2 targets. And if that happens this week, I won't be surprised, but we're so recency biased where it's like whatever happened last week's what's going to happen this week. And that's just not what actually happens. So hopefully you have a different path than these 2 running backs. I am playing against Audric Estime in an important matchup, so he's going to go ham. That is next level analysis. I mean, we just know that's how the world works.
That's the Murphy's Law metric.
Yep.
Brock Bowers, think of him as a wide receiver. Think of him as a tight end. Think of him as the best option
Justin
for the Raiders.
Jefferson.
He's great.
He's so good.
This
Third
is
among all players in yards after the catch, and he's a tight end. He's a rookie.
Denver's defense is very good. If I were Denver, I would try to stop this man and no one else. I would focus on him, but he's pretty hard to cover. And Jacoby Myers receiving lines at 55. So you could do worse than Jacoby Myers in a flex spot this week. The question mark for the Raiders has been who in the world gets handoffs behind Gardner Minshew? Maybe you just don't start running backs in this entire game.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good approach. As of Thursday, which is the last practice report we have, Alexander Mattison with the ankle and Zamir White with the quad, neither practiced. So if that continues, and it seems kind of likely, then Amir Abdullah, I think, is the play. You've got rookie Dylan Laube, who has one touch this year and he fumbled it. So I'm not like
they said he's going to be a big part of the game plan.
The game plan. You always love a good game plan.
That didn't work well.
It's a glamorous
cut that.
game plan. So Amir Abdullah, because he is a pass-catching PPR type of guy, I would throw him in there in a pinch.
Going to be gross.
But it's going to be gross, and you just don't expect much. He can get all of the work and not hit 10 fantasy points.
Yeah, we've learned that from Zamir White for the first couple weeks of the season. All right, let's take a break, and we'll jump into some more matchups. Well, Jason, for the first time today, we get to talk about a matchup not featuring a 2-8 team. The 49ers at 5-5 go to Lambeau to take on the Packers, who are sitting at 7-3. After their fortuitous blocked kick last week, the DraftKings Sportsbook line, Green Bay -3, the over-under 46.5. It has come down from 48. We have question marks around the health of Brock Purdy.
That's what I think has moved the line. When you see these lines, sometimes a game in Lambeau, you think weather. There's a chance for a little bit of rain here, but this is not – I'm not concerned with weather at all. I think the line has moved down from the chance that Brock is not himself or gets knocked out or doesn't play.
So the game seems on the surface as an NFL matchup pretty exciting, but both teams are kind of on the slow side of the way that they play. The 49ers are 31st in neutral pace. They have not put together a complete game this year where they look like themselves, in my opinion.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, they're sitting at 5-5.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the Packers.
Nope.
Okay.
49ers.
Yep. Yeah, I would agree. I would agree.
They just have been, they'll have a game or they'll have a play here, a quarter here. They've got injuries. They've dealt with, injuries in their wide receiver room, obviously losing Ayuk. In the running back room, McCaffrey coming back late. The quarterback's banged up. They've got injuries on the defensive side. I was listening to a 49ers analysis today, and they were talking about their defense EPA per play is like first quarter, they're like the third best in the league. Second quarter, 7th best. Third quarter, 14th. Fourth quarter, 28th.
Wow.
Like their defense somehow runs out of gas.
They just didn't get their cardio in this offseason.
I guess. And so, from a fantasy perspective,
there's a lot. I mean, this is a matchup that in general I like. Both teams projected for more than 20 points. Both teams good offenses if Brock Purdy is healthy. And let's just assume Brock Purdy toughs it out, comes out and plays just a normal game of football. If that happens, I think this will hit the over. Both offenses towards that fourth quarter while the defenses get slow and the need for this victory to head towards the playoffs is there. They get the job done, put up points. That's kind of how I'm expecting this game to go, barring further worse news on Brock Purdy. That means Jaden Reed is in my lineup. Juwan Jennings is in my lineup.
He's your start of the week as well, and I was wondering if you were concerned about the injury to Brock with how Juwan is projected.
I mean, obviously, if Brock doesn't play, Juwan Jennings he goes from being must start, I feel like alpha start, to just
don't play him.
I'm not going to play him.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I would play Tank Dell over him if it comes out that Brock doesn't play. Again, my current expectation, just knowing the man Brock Purdy, is that he will play, tough it out, get a shot in that shoulder, and play fine.
Well, it's going to trickle down, too. Deebo Samuel's been struggling. George Kittle's supposed to play after missing a week with a hamstring injury.
He's definitely playing. He said he wouldn't miss playing in Lambeau.
Yeah, I hope he's right about that.
It's tough with a hamstring.
What is his hamstring saying right now? Because you know what I mean? Like the man says yes. The hamstring might say, yoo-hoo.
Can you think of another injury in all of sports, but especially football, that is more re-aggravated than a hamstring, where people think they're good to come back and then they run full speed and take themselves out?
No, I mean, that's the one you most commonly see is it's really hard to simulate the adrenaline and the full speed
of being chased.
Yeah, it's just different. You run at a different – I mean, this is just something that happens in sports, and I think the hamstring's the most –
Look, I'm not like professional athlete, okay?
Breaking news.
That seems like that was a joke.
I was hoping it was. I was so excited.
It works both ways.
It works. Okay.
It's a joke because that's not breaking news to anybody.
Okay.
But also
we have actual breaking news?
Yeah, the Giants are releasing Daniel Jones.
Oh, good for them. And good for him. I genuinely.
What's the reaction back there in Deucer's Alley? You all laughed.
Just the good for them.
I think this is a good move. They're not going to play him anymore. Why make him?
He came to the team this morning and asked if they would release him.
See that makes complete sense.
We mutually agreed that would be best for the team.
Yeah, he even if something happens to the starter, there's no chance Daniel Jones will play another snap. And so if that's the case, making this guy show up even just to practice and to the podium and to the it's embarrassing.
He had to play scout team safety, and that's kind of the bottom of the rung.
Yeah, I think Baker did that once, but yeah, let him go out, see if he can get a backup job for an important team. Like, you're telling me teams out there that are playoff bound won't think, hey, I don't have a decent backup. Not that Daniel Jones is great, but if a starter gets injured, he can go in there and win games for a good team. So I think it's great. That's good news. And if you're, if he hit the waivers in a dynasty or not a dynasty, but in a superflex league, maybe pick him up in case he signs a backup job. Anyways, I was talking about my elite athleticism.
Yes, you were in the midst of speaking of your your familiarity with the hamstring injuries.
My familiarity with just how I remember back when we were
the demands
playing on our football team, our championship, our
Super
City
team.
of Peoria championship team. And it's so amazing the difference between running routes, making good cuts, coming out of breaks. I'm running. I'm thinking I'm running at full speed. The difference between that and when a ball touches your fingertips and that ball is held on to you by you and then you run.
They're running for your life.
And then after that play, I am exhausted.
Remember how the refs used to kind of make fun of you running?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they did.
Because you were running like a wild man.
Yeah, I think they said
you lost all like control of your arms and legs.
They said I kick my butt when I run. And that doesn't mean like metaphorically. They mean that literally. Like my foot hit. It didn't, but it must look like it. So but my point
what
is,
you're
like,
saying is you get it.
When you
really get it.
I understand the plight of these NFL players is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
and so when the ball is in their hand, hamstrings can be torn again. But all that to say, George Kittle, I think he'll play. And if he's out there, you have to start him. There's obvious.
You are faster than you look.
Thank you. Maybe.
So. Maybe. Thank you. Jordan Love, I think at home in this matchup, you play him.
At home this year, he's averaging 285 passing yards and 2.8 touchdowns. He's good at Lambeau. I think he's a very good start this week.
Yeah, and last week it was pretty ugly for him, and he still ended up over 20 fantasy points. Josh Jacobs, he's averaged 17 fantasy points since week 5. Just pay attention to the limited practices. He should be fine. This is the time of year you kind of preserve your players. You give them opportunities to miss practice or be limited in practice to keep them ready for the playoffs. I'm not into Romeo Doubs. I know Mike, if he were here, would bring him up. He's been outside the top 40 in 3 straight games, 2 catches last week. Dontavian Wicks, Goose Egg Town. Right now it's Watson. Now, Christian Watson or Tank Dell?
I will take Tank Dell there. And I don't mind going either way. That's
I kind of like Watson.
Yeah, this week. He obviously had his career high in yardage last week. Has been more involved. Came back from the injury and has kind of usurped Dontavian Wicks in the snap counts. Fine with that. I think the biggest question in this game, or I think what should be the biggest question, and it might not be for people who have him, is Deebo Samuel, because he's Deebo. He cost you an early pick, and you expect big things. And so he's just kind of an auto start, but I don't know that he should be. I would start Jawan Jennings over Deebo.
He is. I'm the
start
lowest
Cortland
on him this
Sutton
week.
over Deebo.
Yeah, he's sitting at 18 in our consensus. I got him at 23 this week.
Yeah, I mean, I'm
4 for 22 last week against the Seahawks, which is not a great defense.
He doesn't have a great history
What's
against
going
Green
on,
Bay.
man?
His fantasy points scored against Green Bay, 12, 9.9, 7.7, 9.8, 3.4. So I'm not saying bench Deebo Samuel, but I am saying look at your options. And
Josh Downs?
Yeah, I would play Josh Downs over him.
Zay Flowers?
I would play Zay Flowers over him. I would play Cortland Sutton over him. So those are the levels of players where it's like you might have to make that decision until you see him look good, because he hasn't.
The Cardinals are 6-4. They go to Seattle to take on the 5-5 Seahawks, who just knocked off the 49ers. The DraftKings Sportsbook line here, Seattle -1.
Okay, it opened up, I believe, with the Cardinals. It was a pick 'em, like minus half a point. So the home crowd is paying up.
They're over under in this game is 47.5. And this is another game where you mentioned it earlier this morning to me, Jason. Scattered showers.
I think
probably not a full downpour. Probably not windy, but could be wet.
I think this one will have a slight effect on the game. A little bit more running, and this is not like I think you could play Kyler. I think you could play Geno and the receiving options. But if this game were in Arizona, I would love this game. I would love the controlled environment and hope for a really offensive back and forth. I'm less optimistic in the outdoor environment, a noisier crowd, a rainier game, which kind of is seen by the 47.5 point over-under. I'll bet this would be about 50 if it was in Arizona.
The Seahawks defense has struggled, especially recently against wide receivers, and Marvin Harrison has struggled to put up consistent performances week in and week out. Your confidence level with Marvin this week against Seattle is pretty high.
Yeah, I mean, I would start Marvin over Debo if that's the line.
What about over JSN?
So JSN has been really, really good, but JSN I still do not believe is the one for this offense. Metcalf being back, 9 targets, 7 for 70 last week, is he's still the alpha for this team. So I would play Marvin Harrison over JSN. That's not to say I would play JSN over Tank Dell.
James Conner has been very, very good. His DK rushing line's at 67.5 yards, and the Seahawks are 26th against opposing running backs over the last 6 weeks.
Yeah, that doesn't
Is
even
there a
tell
chance you would play Trey Benson?
There's a
in
chance.
A flex?
There's a chance I'm playing Trey Benson in my running back slot, but that's just because things are tough in the streets in that league.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
I'm not excited about it, but yeah, their defense has fallen off a cliff. They started the season looking like week 1, I knew this was a team to target at the running back position, and they proved me wrong for a couple weeks. It was like, okay, maybe they have a decent run defense. No, that was fool's gold. It was all lies. Since that point in time, they're 29th in rushing yards allowed per game, 29th in expected points added per play in the rushing game. Their defense is not good. So James Conner is a must start. Trey Benson is not someone I want to start, but in a pinch,
would you flex him or Xavier Worthy?
I would go Xavier Worthy there.
The Cardinals,
but I would play Trey Benson over Amir Abdullah.
Yeah, he's been double digits 2 straight weeks. People probably don't know the name, haven't heard about that. The fact, all the numbers you said about Seattle's defense is why it was so unsettling that Debo did nothing against them.
Right, yeah.
That's why it was so frustrating.
You're usually not able to tackle Debo Samuel. Like, it takes a village, and it took one guy usually that game.
And the Seahawks were so disappointed in their own defense that they got rid of their leading tackler 2 weeks ago.
And then won on the road in San Francisco.
Kenneth Walker, confidence level with Walker in a game that you think could be more on the ground with the rain.
10 out of 10. Walker's must start. He's in your lineup.
Trey McBride leads all tight ends in first read targets. Please play him.
Really wanted both these running backs in DraftKings. I don't know if you've got either of them. I don't have either of them because I liked other guys more, but I expect big things from both guys.
I was going to say, that sounded a little bit like the whole, like, the coach is like, we got to get that guy the ball.
Yeah.
And then you're like, but you're the coach.
I don't know
like,
how we can get him the ball more, but we're going to try. I'm not going to do it. But
like when you're like, I really wanted both of these guys in DraftKings, and then you're like, but I have neither.
Right. I have
but you're the guy that put him in.
I still have better options.
Okay.
Right.
So but I might say you didn't really want them.
I can want a lot of things.
Yeah. No.
But I only get a couple things.
Al Borland says he thought the same thing. Okay. DK Metcalf, JSN's line's 56.5. You can definitely play JSN. I didn't mean to imply you might bench him just because I compared him to the Harrison start, but JSN has been top 12 in back-to-back weeks.
And DK Metcalf has a good matchup here too. I really like Metcalf this week.
Tyler Lockett's kind of fallen off the face of the earth.
Yep, he's not someone that is in the startable category to me.
Okay. Let's move forward. Sunday Night Football, the Eagles at 8-2, the Rams at 5-5. The DK Sportsbook line here, Philly -2.5. The over-under is 49. Pretty important game for the playoff positioning, especially for the Rams trying to survive the logjam in the NFC West.
Mm-hmm.
Philadelphia
one
trying
game
to
between the entire division.
Yeah,
it's really crazy.
And Philly's right there with Detroit. You know, they're only a game behind, so they need to keep winning. Jalen Hurts, quarterback 3 on the year. He's an auto start every week, along with Barkley, along with A.J. Brown, whose receiving line is at 75.5. The real question mark is going to be.
Did you see the Eagles? Their contract that they gave to Barkley and the incentives?
No,
man. Howie Roseman is so smart. I love this man. I'm so jealous of Eagles fans who get him to run your organization, but they did not put any touchdown incentives in his contract because they don't want the tush push to, like, you know what I mean?
Aggravate
him. Or he's got yardage, all these, but no touchdown incentives in his contract. It's just brilliant. Anyways.
Yeah, he tries to do his scoring from distance.
Yeah, he needs to.
I mean, he's had 55-yard touchdown, 65, 2 touchdowns last game. Now goes to a controlled environment in Los Angeles, takes on the Rams. Rams have been good against running backs, but who cares? It's Saquon. A.J. Brown's receiving line's at 75.5. We talked earlier this week about the fact that pass rate over expectation, the Eagles have been dead last over the last 4 weeks, so the opportunities haven't been, there haven't been a lot of them for the wide receivers, and now Devontae Smith might miss this game. Does that open the window for Dallas Goedert to be a spot start at tight end?
If absolutely, if Devontae Smith doesn't play.
Which seems like a real worry, and the fact this is a night game,
yeah, I mean,
it's even scarier for you to wait it out.
You can even put Devontae Smith in your flex and pick up Dallas Goedert as the Sunday night pivot, and play him in a flex spot if you need, because usually you do see Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert have kind of a back and forth affair of when they both play, they're not as good. When either one misses, the other guy is usually very good. Obviously, A.J. Brown is the belle of the ball here and will have a dominant game. I'm thrilled that this is Sunday Night Football. This game's going to be a blast, and I could see it going any direct. Like, I have no feel for this game. I could see the Eagles blowing them out. I could see the Rams winning and holding everything down at home. How do you end up seeing? Did you call this game?
I thought the line was smaller than I thought it'd be. I think the Rams at home, the way that they've been playing on offense with a healthy Puka and Cooper Kupp, can keep up. But I don't know if they'll be able to hold up the entire game. Kyren hasn't scored a rushing touchdown since week 7.
Yeah, too much was made about all of his rushing touchdowns, and this isn't the matchup for it. I mean, the Eagles' defense is one we have been trying to avoid.
That's the reason I'd side with the Eagles on this one. Just their defensive performances.
I agree. This is going to take a big performance from Matthew Stafford against a tough defense. If I had to put a dollar down, I would say that the Eagles are going to take care of business, and it's going to come on the back of Matthew Stafford laying on his back.
Yeah, that would be the concern. That would make him a very questionable spot start. Kyren's in your lineup. Kupp and Puka are in your lineup.
For sure. And then check out.
Yeah. All right, we'll take a quick break and hit the Monday night game and the fantasy face-off. Daniel Jones' release leaves behind dead cap hits of $47.1 million in 2024 and $22 million in 2025.
Man, and it's so shocking because when he signed this very surprising contract, no one could have seen this outcome coming.
No, we assumed it would just work out.
Yeah, that Daniel Jones would lead them to a lot of victories and was worth every dollar that they spent on a massive contract after watching him for years.
How much is Daniel Jones to blame for the whole story, and how much is all the things that sometimes disrupt a young player's career? So you talk about the weapons that he had, the offensive line, the change at the head coaching position, the loss of Saquon Barkley.
I would say most of it is on Daniel Jones. Like 75% is on Daniel Jones. 25% is on where they drafted him. It goes back to that draft. Like, I still feel like if Daniel Jones was a second-round pick, his
hey, it's me, Dave.
Dave, it's me. Yeah, Dave Gettleman first of all, there was no reason to draft him that high. No one was going to take Daniel Jones that high, but it put this pressure, this expectation, it put too much on shoulders that were never meant to carry that load.
That's a really good way to put it.
So, yeah, I blame Dave Gettleman at least 25%. But Daniel Jones is he is a good quarterback. He is not a good NFL caliber starter. He's a perfect backup.
He is, and he'll be that at this point. Baltimore, Monday Night Football, taking on the Chargers, the Har Bowl.
Thank you, Andy. I saw this in our show, Doc, and someone wrote the Harbaugh Bowl.
That's not what it is.
What?
It's not the Harbaugh Bowl.
It's the Har Bowl.
You clowns.
Come on, it's right there.
It's the Har Bowl.
Har Bowl.
The Ravens are 7-4. The Chargers are 7-3. Baltimore's 2.5-point road favorites. The over-under is a beautiful, spectacular,
is it really?
majestic wonderful 51 points.
That's surprising to me.
The Harbaugh.
I'm so excited for this game. I do think it ends up slightly more defensive than we want.
John William Harbaugh versus James Joseph Harbaugh.
John sounds like a wonderful composer.
Yeah. Yes, some of his best work.
I believe he did Jurassic Park.
Star Wars. Yeah. All right. Well, look, 51-point over-under. Who don't you start?
Yeah, I mean, despite me saying that I think it will be a little bit more defensive than all the hopes and expectations and even the betting line, you are going to start most everybody. Obviously, Derrick Henry is in without question. Lamar Jackson is in without question. Justin Herbert, I think, should be started in most situations because when you look at the Ravens, a little bit more difficult to run on them. They are 32nd in fantasy points given up to wide receivers, both on the course of the season and the last 6 weeks. They're 29th and 28th, respectively, at the quarterback position. So you could throw on them, especially towards the end of the game. So I think Quentin Johnston, your start of the week. Ladd McConkey's a fine play. Herbert's in. So now you get to the other questionable players, which is the Dobbins, Gus Edwards, running backs who, despite Dobbins being the RB12 on the season and having a lot of touchdowns, he has not been efficient.
His rushing line's only 50.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that's a proper line.
But he's who I'd play over Edwards for sure.
For sure. He's the starter. Edwards is the backup. But there's something about like Edwards was the touchdown machine in Baltimore. There's something that just feels like poetic about a rushing touchdown for Gus Edwards.
Who wins
here.
the game?
I think Baltimore wins the game.
I'm on the side of the Chargers.
I will be rooting for the Chargers because in games like this, in amazing, important, storyline-driven games, I always root for the hometown because I just want everybody there to go home happy.
To have a nice time.
I don't want the kids out there being like
Zay Flowers is it's been pointed out to me he's the wide receiver 8 on this season. Does he feel that way?
He does not feel that way, but he does feel must start. I mean, so I guess maybe he does. He's been a little inconsistent, but when he has his good games, I mean, they're really, really good. He's been the wide receiver 2, the wide receiver 11, wide receiver 6, wide receiver 13 a couple of times. He has, week-winning talent, and in a game with a 51-point over-under, have to start him.
58.8% of the time over his last 17 games has he given you over 10.5 fantasy points. That is a B in our consistency charts, which you can see as part of jointhefoot.com.
That is such a good – like, I think if people, maybe you're driving, maybe you didn't pay attention. What you just said, 58% of the time gives you that line that's a good game. I think most people would think that is bad. Like, oh, he's only giving you like a game that you really like 58% of the time? And then they hear, oh, it's a B in our
You want to hear something frightening?
Sure.
Tyreek Hill's at 47.1%.
Well, yeah, I mean, this season – I mean, it's the last rolling 17.
It is
so
the last
we'll
rolling
go
17.
back into last season. But my point is, don't overreact to bad wide receiver performances, people. Take talent because
give me another name of somebody that you would view as better than Zay Flowers.
Better than as a receiver or for fantasy?
I'm just saying somebody you would think is consistent. I want to look up the number for you and give you that percentage. Who's somebody more consistent in your mind than Zay Flowers who's sitting as a B?
DK Metcalf.
Okay, let's take a look at DK Metcalf real quick. He is an A in consistency.
Okay.
64.7% of the time.
There you go.
So that's what, 6% higher?
Yep, and that's
an A. That's like upper echelon, unless you're CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah,
in which
CeeDee
case
Lamb,
you're like 82%.
Amon-Ra St. Brown, Justin Jefferson, probably A.J. Brown, I would assume, but I'm not sure on that one. Check A.J. Brown's. When you get past those top 5 or 6.
Seems like DK should be an A-. Do we got minuses in there?
We don't have.
We might need to get some minuses.
I don't think we have minuses.
Make a note.
All right, note has been made.
Yeah. I don't want to be lumped in. Like if I got a 96 on a test, I don't want to be lumped in with the guy that got a 91.
That's fair.
You know what I mean?
Because there is a tier break there.
Yeah.
But there is also a tier. It's an appropriate tier break between DK and Zay, but it's not an appropriate tier break between the upper echelon studs.
I think we
Metcalf.
agree.
Right.
Mark Andrews in 7 games this year without a touchdown, 3.4 fantasy points per game, destroyed your week. In the 4 games he has scored, 15 fantasy points per game.
Won you your week.
I mean, I think we said this about 4 weeks ago. If he scores, which he had been doing, you'll be happy. If he doesn't, now that Isaiah Likely is back and healthy and getting targets and last week had 75 yards, you're going to be unhappy if he doesn't get into the end zone. Does he have a chance here? Yes, he does.
51-point over-under, you're starting Mark Andrews. I mean, this.
I do think that there would be some start-sit decisions there.
Really?
I do. The Chargers are very good against the tight end. And so if you don't get a touchdown, you will be nothing. You might want to play somebody that doesn't have that variability level.
I will say this. I was a little bit surprised. So we have we all three have built over many years our algo docs, as we call them, that pull in a bunch of stuff, take as much automated information in as possible, matchups, weather, Vegas lines, history, players, I mean, everything that we can possibly throw at it. And I was surprised how my algo doc disrespected Mark Andrews. For this week, just absolutely hated Mark Andrews. So it's
got to be a bit of the Chargers thing. And like, let me give you an example, though. I'd play Hunter Henry, and I would play Jonnu Smith above Mark Andrews.
So I
think those would be better calls.
I would play Mark Andrews over either one of them. And I think it goes back to what we said a couple weeks ago and what you said a minute ago, which is the baseline, the floor for both Jonnu and Hunter Henry is higher than Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews can really bust. Despite the matchup, I expect Mark Andrews to get a touchdown this week. And so if I believe that, which maybe it's stupid to believe that in this matchup, I do believe that. And if that is the case, I think his ceiling is higher. But he's in that same tier of type of player.
Okay, let's regrettably move on to this segment.
Fantasy Faceoff, presented by DraftKings.
Last week when I left the studio, we were watching games together, and when I left, I thought I had a healthy lead. I thought I had enough to get it done. Instead, Jason, you stormed back 118. Mike had 114, and I was at 111. I took the L, which actually puts us into a position where through 11 weeks, because we didn't have it in the first week.
Right.
It's really close on the year.
Close.
I have 4 firsts, 3 seconds, 3/3. You're at 3.34. Mike's at 3.43.
Yeah, we're all right there with each other, and after this week, I'll get another W.
Okay, we'll see. But I can't really talk trash when I have to spin this.
Wheel of Shame.
I don't know what's coming my way. I know that right before the show, I heard one of the producers say, I hope we can hear you in this.
I want to pre-apologize to the listening audience. The YouTube audience, you're going to have a great time.
There's a chance someone has to read my lineup for me.
Yeah, it's probably not going to be the best.
Great. Go ahead and spin
But enjoy it.
Yeah, this sucks.
All right, so what do we got here?
I barely lost.
We've got Mall Cop, Rainy Day, Fighting Irish. Uh-oh. A quack job?
Okay.
No, Andy, you're going to be a quack job. Looks pretty simple. Andy, you are a duck. You threw a duck in our championship league, and now you are just a duck face. So can you see and can we hear you? That is the new question.
I can see-ish.
Can we hear him?
Can you hear me?
Yeah?
You hear me right
All right.
now?
We can hear you, Ish.
All right, we can hear
Do you
you
want me to
enough.
talk like this?
No, I want you to talk through that duck face, you ugly duck face.
Baker Mayfield's my quarterback, 6,100.
Oh, I love that. I really like Baker. I like that quarterback better than mine. I spent the entire...
Oh, it smells so bad in here.
Yeah, I farted in there. I spent the entire week with Tommy Cutlets at 4,000. I mean, that's so low for a quarterback, and you can do some fun things. Is that why you talked
him up on the show like an idiot?
No, I talked him up on the show like an idiot because I believed what I said. Again, in context, a quarterback 2 this week. But I ended up with a little bit more money, and I went with Geno Smith. A little bit rain, but at 5,700, Geno Smith has been on fire, averaging 19 points per game in DK. So producer Borland, Al, what is Mike's quarterback?
Mike is going with Bonix.
Okay.
At 6,300.
What does he cost? 63?
Yes, sir.
Baker's
Oh,
Baker's
man.
at 61.
What is that you're talking out of? Was that part of the mouth?
A breathing hole.
A breathing hole.
People need to breathe.
Yeah. Let's make this segment last a while.
I am people.
You're in a sauna right now.
Devon Achane at 7,500 and Kareem Hunt at 5,700.
Son of a gun. I really thought this week we were going to have a very different lineup. We are different at the quarterback, but I have Devon Achane at 7,500 and Kareem Hunt at 5,700 because those are Devon Achane has just been a player putting up too many points to not start.
Start of the week.
And Kareem Hunt, I still don't expect Isaiah Pacheco to play, but I'm happy you've got him as well. 5,700.
Why'd
He's
you
underpriced.
fart in here?
I farted in there because you were going to put it on your head and wear it. Owl, who's my guy?
All right, Mike is very live here with none of the same players as you guys so far. He's got Christian McCaffrey at 8,500 and Brian Robinson Jr. at 5,600.
Okay. And let's move to wide receiver, Andy. Duckface?
I'm actually going Marvin Harrison Jr. in Seattle, 6,100. Calvin Ridley at 5,700. And Juwan Jennings at 5,600.
Okay, well, we've both got Juwan Jennings at 5,600. I assume Mike will as well because that is
He does.
the most mispriced player if Brock is healthy. I have, instead of Marvin Harrison Jr. in that rain game, I've stacked DK Metcalf on the other side of the ball. So that'll be a fun one to watch. And then I've got what is this? How do you pronounce this? Amon-Ra St. Brown at 8,300 will be my stud wide receiver, scoring me a bajillion points.
All right, like I said, Mike also has Juwan Jennings at 5,600, and then he's going with Nico Collins at 7,600 and Cortland Sutton at 5,800.
Okay, those are nice. Tight end?
My stack, Cade Otton, 5,500.
Ooh.
Demario Douglas, 4,500.
Very cheap.
Cheap Douglas against Miami. And then the Buccaneers defense paid up a little bit facing Tommy Cutlets, 3,300.
All right, so you are heavily interested and invested in the Buccaneers.
Yes.
I hope that weathery game gets real windy now. I've got the Schoonmaker at 2,500. This is back-to-back weeks with a $2,500
How'd that work out last
tight end.
week?
A goose. It got me a goose, but this
I'm
one
a
is
duck, but I know goose when I see it.
nice. I've got Brian Robinson Jr. in my flex, 5,600, and I've got the Bears at 2,500 against Minnesota at home.
All right, Mike is going with the Scoon Man in the tight end spot at 2,500, and then he's flexing Trey McBride, another tight end at 5,600, and then he's got the Bears defense as well at 2,500.
Wow, Trey McBride's only 5,600.
Correct.
As a wide receiver, I feel like he would be like 7,000. That's an interesting to flex Trey McBride. I like that.
I can't breathe.
You can't breathe? Well, too bad. We're going to make this last a lot longer. I've got a story to tell. No, that was Fantasy Forecast presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the code BALLERS. That's code BALLERS. And take advantage of special daily promotions only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Well, it's mine, but it can be yours.
Quack, quack.
Quack, quack.
You're going to be on Sunday Live, right?
I will be on Sunday Live. Join me an hour before kickoff. We'll win this week.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. 1+ promotion per day. Promotion sport eligibility and requirements vary. Ends December 31st, 2024. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos.